Good evening and welcome to Slam the Gavel, the show that tells it all regarding family court, other court issues, as well as CPS. I am your host, Maryann Petri. You can find me, my books, and blogs on dismantlingfamilycourtcorruption.com. The book Dismantling Family Court Corruption, Why Taking the Kids Was Not Enough, came out in 2020, followed by Cry Out for Justice, Poems of Truth. Then, Raised by These Wolves, How Family and Federal Courts Are Failing Our Children came out as a bestseller in 2023, followed by Raised by These Wolves Volume 2, Child Trafficking Through the Foster Care and Court Systems, which came out July 17th of 2024 as a bestseller. Please feel free to buy me a coffee to help keep this podcast going. I've got two brand new guests on. I have Jamie Logan and Jamie Cunningham on here from Colorado. They're here today and they are going to speak out about how corrupt the family court system is in Colorado and the devastating effects on their family and children. The two met because Taya Matoy habitually mixed up their cases. Taya Matoy was a court appointed to be a PRE, which is a parental responsibility evaluator, to two young boys in a custody battle. She was also a court ordered as a CFI, child family investigator, to two young girls in a custody battle. As a PRE, you have to be licensed as a mental health professional. But that wasn't the case for Taya Matoy. Mita Johnson, the board chair member of Marriage and Family Therapy Licensing Board, signed off on her fraudulent application. The Office of Investigations and Inspections could not verify any of her credentials. Her degree has someone else's name on it, and the other degree was not certified transcript. She also has 3 DUIs, perhaps more now, for her records are now sealed. Taya Matoy is still actively licensed as a marriage and a family therapist in Colorado today. And I welcome you both to the podcast. And Jamie, so Jamie Logan, how did you
Yes.
guys, well, you met by accident, unfortunately.
Yes. So Taya Matoy was court appointed on my case as a PRE. And throughout the process with her, she was very unprofessional, very unorganized, and she mixed our cases up. She would be sending me emails that were supposed to be sent to Jamie Cunningham and documents, providing documents of her case to my case, mixing us up. And so that's how Jamie and I met. And it doesn't end there. So basically, she was court appointed on my case to make a recommendation to the court in regards to where the children should live. I decided that it was best that I move back to Massachusetts, to be close to my family. And she was supposed to make a recommendation to the court on that behalf. And so what happened was, throughout the process, she ended up writing a completely biased report favoring father's positions. She did not even adhere to her own criteria and her own procedures. For example, she required 3 to 5 collaterals, which I gave her 4. She allowed father to have 9 collaterals. She was a PRE. The report typically takes about 90 days. For her, it took her 157 days. She was court appointed for the reason that she was going to be able to get it done at a faster amount of time. But in the end, it was delayed without an excuse why it was delayed. So the court eventually did take her recommendation. It does state it in the court order itself. And throughout the whole process, I was just absolutely confused, devastated. I did not understand. First and foremost, I'm a mom, but I am also, second, I do hold a degree in human development and family studies from Colorado State University. And so I do know a little bit about human development and families. And so when speaking with Taya Matoy, she didn't know simple and basic terminology that someone with a licensed in marriage and family therapy should understand. And so after the court order was ordered, I decided to look into her. I hired an investigator, and he sure did confirm that her credentials were not valid. He recommended filing a complaint with DORA, which is the Colorado Department of Regulatory Agencies, and they should be able to take care of it from there. We did request a CORA, which is a Colorado Opens Records Act. So we were able to obtain her full record of her application and her credentials. And it's interesting because her degree is in somatic psychology with a concentration in dance and movement, which is not equivalent to someone who holds a master's degree in marriage and family therapy. And so in order for DORA to accept that, it had to go to another organization to accept it. But instead of it going to that other organization, she filled out a different form that was signed by Meta Johnson. Meta Johnson is the board chair member of Marriage and Family Therapy. And she is still, to this day, she is still the board chair member of that department.
Man,
so
that's really bad. And
yeah,
so you had Jamie Cunningham's records, and you were looking through those records thinking, what's up? This is
yes,
right.
yes. And it was even shown to the judge that I had someone else's files, and the judge just looked a blind eye to it. I actually had so Taya Matoy actually called a couple of professionals to verify things within my case. Those professionals were mortified by what she had written in her report, and they had to come and testify that what she wrote was not what they said. It was just the most, devastating thing and bizarre thing. But yet we have all this evidence that this report wasn't even legit, and the judge still took her recommendation. So
Yeah, what I've seen from these family court cases, and even what happened in mine, the judge won't think for themselves. They'll just go off of somebody else's recommendation.
right.
It's really bad. It's really bad.
It is. And from my experience, because I'm still litigating after this Taya Matoy's case was back in 2019, 2020, and I'm still litigating. The magistrate has now just ordered a CLR, which is a child legal representative to my case. Her name is Holly Gummerson, and Holly Gummerson is a juvenile criminal defense attorney. And so what a CLR needs under Colorado Revised Statute 1410 116 states that they, under the new guidelines, they have to be trained in domestic violence, such as like sexual abuse, coercive control, etc. They need a certain amount of hours, but that's not even enough. I mean, when you come to these cases that are supposedly high conflict, and I feel like high conflict, they need to get rid of that word right there, because it's not high conflict. You got one person who's most likely the coercive controller, the perpetrator, and then you have the victim. That is not high conflict. High conflict means both parties are high conflict. And typically when it comes to this, it's you got a perpetrator and you got a victim.
Right.
And yeah.
Well, essentially you have a personality disorder that doesn't know when to quit dragging you to court every 2 weeks. That's where, and then they're saying, well, that's a high conflict case. No, it's a personality disorder that doesn't know when to quit.
Correct. And then when you get these people deciding the fate of your children's lives, and they have maybe 10 hours under their belt, maybe 20 under that statute of domestic violence, and they're supposed to make a recommendation on your children's lives,
Mhm.
it's scary. It's scary what we're doing.
Right.
Um, yeah. So
That is very bad. And the thing is, you know, these people that make these grand decisions on our children's and our lives, they'll break up our families, but they get to go home happily to their families. Isn't that how it works?
exactly, exactly.
Right. And from what I was told, this Taya, whoever, Matoy, does not even have kids.
No, not that I know of.
See,
Correct.
this is what
Yeah.
I'm running into with a lot of people that have been on this podcast is they're dealing with judges or attorneys, evaluators. They don't even have kids of their own.
No, and so they don't understand, they don't understand. So in my case, and I'll just briefly touch on it, I don't want to go deeply into it, but my case currently is at the CLR, Holly Gummerson. It was over the summer. It was my parenting time. Um, all of a sudden, father decided that he believed it was his parenting time. So there was a we were court ordered to appear. There was some ex parte that occurred, and I didn't attend the hearing because of the ex parte.
Hmm.
But Holly Gummerson did. She knew about the change in the court hearing date. So she attended this court hearing. Now she's supposed to work as the best interest of the child, but really I believe that means the best interest of the state.
Hmm.
Because no one thinking of the best interests of the children would do what she did. She lied under oath, and I have her statement here. And everything I'm saying is public. You can go on my case and you can get it. It's publicly known. But this is what she said, which is absolutely not true. She indicated, speaking of me, I am not to speak to the children, even though I did offer to speak with them virtually in Massachusetts as well. And she is not willing to comply with the court order regarding the CLR appointment. Now, that did not occur. So, my experience with Taya Matoy is you record, record, record. You document, document, document. So, all my communication with Holly has been documented. And I never said that. But she was willing to commit perjury under oath. And what she did in that hearing is she helped and assist to issue warrants for the removal of my children. And may I say that no one looked and read the existing court order to see if father and what he was saying was true. And so to end that story is my children were ripped away from me, and now he has full custody. And I have to say, there is a House bill that was passed. It's under Julie's law. If you look up Julie's law, it states that majority of this is a law that Holly, as a CLR, has to understand and take in consideration. But it says that majority of the time, the abuser gets full custody. And she assisted in that. And but
Yes.
so
Yes.
it's not just a one-off where Jamie and I experienced this horrible experience with Ty Matoy, but it's an ongoing thing. I hear so many stories with so many moms having the same experience, and it needs to stop. It needs to stop. If we can't count on a very organization that's supposed to protect us from unlicensed people,
Mhm.
who are we supposed to count on in Colorado? If you have DORA allowing fraudulent applicants to hold a license, yeah.
That's really bad. So these laws are written like Julie's Law, but no one's following them, right? I mean, they're
Cor-
not.
Correct, correct. And you bring it up to the courts, and if, you know, they don't do anything. I brought it up to her herself, and she didn't do anything. And I just don't understand. That they're going forward in these rulings and laws, but they're not, because no one's holding anyone accountable. And that's where it is they're not holding anyone accountable. Taya Matoy committed perjury on my case. Holly Gummerson did as well, and they're not held accountable for those actions. So when they're not held accountable, what happens? Everything falls apart. And I do want to bring up the fact that Colorado, and this is just me researching it, has the fourth highest crime rate. And I solely believe part of that is because they're putting innocent women in jail, because they are protecting their children. And then they also have one of the highest teen or adolescent suicides. Now those numbers come from 2022, where Colorado was number 10. And it is mentioned that it has risen, like the suicide rate has risen. But I'm sorry, Colorado, we need to look at what we're doing to our children. This is horrible, horrible. You are ripping the children away from their primary attachment parent. And that's devastating to the growth and development of that child or children. It's awful. It's awful. And they are causing it. They are causing these children to feel that way, especially when you're an adolescent and going through school and growth and puberty. You need to be in a secure place, not a place that you're not comfortable in, so.
Well, do these judges, I don't look at their evidence at all? This is always my big question. Do they look
They
at?
do not. They do
No.
not. They don't look at evidence, because I have evidence. And, I look at all these transcripts that just recently happened. It's all hearsay, all hearsay, and they're making rulings on hearsay. Why can't the magistrate or judge say, prove it to me, show me the evidence? You're saying that she's gatekeeping, you're saying she's alienating, show me the evidence, because I don't see it. I see that she's actually wanting you to be part of her life, and so yeah, they're not looking at evidence. And I have to say, I feel as if this is a business.
Oh, it is.
So yeah, absolutely. Because when I lived with my ex-husband, we lived minimally, because my husband, we didn't have money. We were poor. We were on Medicaid, right? The minute I got a divorce, oh, he had all the money in the world. He had all the money worth.
Funny how that works.
Yeah, but I know, exactly. I want to say that he has spent, now this isn't fact, but I want to say that he has spent over $700,000. And to think that we were living poor under his household, and yet all of a sudden he decided to take care of his attorney's kids, instead of his own kids. His attorney's kids are going to go to college, not mine. Mine aren't going to have that opportunity because of money.
And that is disgusting. And that's their behaviors.
Yeah.
It's just, even in my case, as soon as we walked into the gate, I mean, we were just there, his attorney stands up and says, she's mentally ill and she's alienating the kids from the father. Now, why did the judge say, stop it? I mean, if I was a judge, I would have said, stop it, prove it. Prove it.
Right.
And that's enough out of you. That's what I would have said too. It's
Which they
Here's
need to do, because you
right,
can't just say that. You can't without evidence.
right. But they were BFFs. They had worked together in the DA's department for years. Okay, so here's a big secret. If you want to win your case, find a judge and an attorney that has worked together in the DA's department for years. They'll do each
Uh,
other favors all the time.
yeah, it's
Yeah,
true.
it's sick.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm
Yeah,
so sorry this has happened to you.
yeah.
Um,
Well,
it-
and Jamie's story is just as devastating. It's
mhm.
horrible.
Oh, Jamie, where are you at? Your case is over with, right?
Yes.
And when did your case end?
I believe it was 2020.
And how long were you in court?
Um, it took over 2 years. 2 years, which everyone told me going in, this would be a super fast thing.
Mhm,
It should take maybe 6 months. And it was over 2 years.
mhm. And we all go into court thinking this is gonna be fair. All judges are fair, because they're in a higher seating, and we are so misled.
Yeah, like, I was always raised to respect authority and to fear it and tell the truth and be a good person, and then you have nothing to fear or hide, and so that's just who I am as a person,
Mhm,
and so I went in under those beliefs, like, the courts, you have to tell the truth, and I just thought, "Oh, this is gonna be great. He's my ex-husband is gonna be exposed because he's gonna be forced to tell the truth." That is 100% not true. You could say whatever you want in family court. You don't have to have evidence to back it up. Hell, even the professionals, like Jamie just explained, they don't even need the degrees. You just need a friend to sign off on your application and you're in.
mhm.
And so I didn't stand a chance. I
Oh,
couldn't have done anything differently
yeah.
because they were all in cahoots. They had a plan going in. My husband's ex-husband's attorney obviously knew Taya Matoy, recommended her, even said that they would pay her full fee and I wouldn't have to split it, which my attorney thought was very odd. He had never heard that one before. But they were very excited to get her and to get her going as quickly as possible. And at the time, I just thought, oh, it's because they want to wrap this up so we can move on with our lives. That was not the case.
Mm.
They didn't want me to have any time to research, come back and say, no, I think somebody else is better equipped to handle this situation. They just wanted to wrap it up.
Yeah, that collusion, it just doesn't end. When they offer you that, we'll pay for everything, that something was up.
Yeah. Because throughout our entire, just like Jamie's, throughout our entire relationship as well, we were split for 10 years. So it was a little bit different. We weren't living under one roof as a happy family. We were married, but we were separated, living two different lives in two separate homes. He couldn't afford to pay child support. He was always broke. And when he did, we're talking like minimal $200-300 a month. Always had an excuse as to why he couldn't pay. But all of a sudden, he can pay this $2,800 like it's nothing, like it's change.
Mhm.
I think that was just so odd and out of character.
Oh, can I say something? As far as the money, Taya Matoy said that she would do it for $4,000. My ex-husband paid her 7,500 right off the bat. He was actually court ordered to pay because I had no money. So yeah, I didn't know he paid her $3,500 more until after the court order was done. And after I requested her accounting log is when I found out my ex-husband paid her way over the amount that she was supposed to be paid.
Yes. Do you know how many families she's handling at a time? What her caseload is?
So I believe she's no longer practicing as a PRE or CFI. I do know she started doing reunification, but I think she stopped that as well. My guess is probably too many complaints her way, and so she's, you know, not doing it right now.
I remember on our case, she had told us that she takes no more than like 2 or 3 at a time. And so that's why her fee was what it was so, in her words, was so high, was so she can spend as much time and dedicate as much time to a smaller number of cases to get it correct. Which obviously not the case.
So Jamie, I do remember that she ended up getting a 3rd DUI, and Jamie's case wasn't yet settled. Is that right?
Right.
And she brought it to the judge's attention, as well as the fact that she had mixed up the cases. And the judge, what did he do about that?
Well, I brought it up to my attorney, who immediately was on my side and was like, no, this, we filed an emergency motion to get this heard, to see if we couldn't get a new CFI appointed. And the judge said, nope, I'm going to let her finish, and dismissed everything. Even though we had brought proof of Logan's emails and everything that had been mixed up, we brought all the evidence. I recorded some of my phone conversations, and I had those as evidence to play for the judge as well. And he wouldn't even listen or look at the evidence. He just said, nope, we'll allow her to finish. So then I went to try and file a complaint with her through the Weld County courts. And they told me the same thing, that I wasn't allowed to file a complaint until after she was finished and my divorce had been signed off and complete, and I received my divorce decree. And in order to file a complaint, I would have to send them a copy of my divorce decree. And I explained to them, like, how is that fair given these circumstances? And they just said that's how they do it.
Which is probably another lie.
And she told me if I wanted to, what's the word I'm looking for, argue or try and dispute her findings, that I would have my chance to do that in trial. And I was like, well, I don't have money to go to trial. Trial is going to cost a minimum of $10,000. And she said, that's my only recourse. So what are families supposed to do that don't have money to go to trial?
That's another way of roping in more money for the courts. Oh, you can't
Right.
dispute this until we go into trial. So
Right.
That's really sick.
And so then when mine was done, I did go back and I did file the complaint, which I looked at it last night. I made, I think, about 8 complaints over the different standards, and only one of them was she found guilty of. And it was very interesting because I was reading back over that, and I list my complaint and I attach my evidence to, substantiate my claim, which I did very thoroughly in each one. Taya then gets a chance to come back and explain herself, but she doesn't attach any evidence. She just says what she says, and they take it like gold, like she's, she must be a public figure, so everything she's saying is truth. And I just couldn't believe it. I had proof. She had no proof, and they still sided with her. She got, like I said, she was only found guilty of violating one standard, and she got a slap on the wrist. She got a 30-day suspension from taking on new cases. She could continue working on all the ones she was currently working on, but just couldn't take on any new ones for 30 days. And then, like Jamie had said, we had found out through an arrest record that she had gotten another DUI. And I'm sitting here thinking to myself, like, well, I'm not a criminal. Surely the courts of Colorado, or any state for that matter, is not going to allow a criminal. And I get the whole you're innocent until proven guilty stuff. Got that, but she's had 2 previous DUIs. Clearly she cannot make good judgments for her life, but yet they're going to allow her to make judgments for families and children in Colorado. And that to me, just when we found out about the DUI, it just clicked everything. The 2 a.m. texts, the slurring of words, the mispronunciations, the misspellings, the mix-ups. I obviously can't prove, but I have my suspicions of what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
And you think a court would look at that? And just to be safe, just to be on the safe side, why would you not just cite on the error of caution and be like, you know, you brought up a lot of really valid points, and to be on the safe side so we get it right for these innocent children, we're going to go ahead and we're going to start over and put someone else on this. Why not err on the side of caution?
Right, because you both had the first name of Jamie.
Mm-hmm.
So as a judge, I would say well, he didn't do the right thing. Who was the judge? Do you want to say or no?
So we both had different judges because we were in different counties. My judge was, oh, now that you put me on the spot, I can't remember.
Oh, sorry.
I had a magistrate, which my magistrate was Judge Lococo from Wells County, and then now I can't remember my judge's name. But it was not the same as Jamie's.
Okay.
And my judge was Judge Butler, who's now retired. So, yeah.
And all these kids' lives are, they're not doing well.
No. So for me, so I did end up moving, even though, I knew that in Colorado you would still have parenting time. Yes, the judge didn't grant me having the kids during the school year, but I still moved. And why I moved is because I was in such an emotionally, psychologically abusive relationship that if I stayed in Colorado, it would be an ongoing issue. My children would never, ever see the truth. So I moved, and I got them over the summer. I got them over vacations. I would fly out every single month for a long weekend, because sometimes twice a month, to see my boys. And I was actively participating in their lives, even though I was 2,000 miles away. And it wasn't until the second summer, my child, I'm going to probably cry, but my child said to me, "Mommy, you do love me." And I'm like, I do love you. He knew just by my actions and living with me away from his father, he got to live the experience of that. Yes, mom does love me, despite what daddy's saying about my mom. And I know people judge me for leaving, but that moment is the exact reason why I left. So, but anyway, so then, my children, my ex-husband decided, because he was having a hard time with the children, that it would be best if they do live with me in Massachusetts, and we would do a temporary order. And so the boys got to live with me over the school year of last school year. And they loved it. They were flourishing. They had so many friends. They were just growing. And then, well, you know what happened with that. So it's just devastating. It's coercive control, and you get these professionals who don't understand that these children are pawns in a chess game, and it's awful. And it's hard to fight a system does not care. They're looking at the dollar amount. I don't know. I mean, I or Jamie and I worked so hard to prove that this Taya Matoy should not be licensed. But DORA, the very organization that's supposed to protect us, has allowed her to have a license with a degree with someone else's name on it. And I know.
And I just want to say, with the way they treat you, from everything that you've told me and all you've done, it really does come across like they're protecting her. They're not. They're supposed to protect the public, but they're not. Every time you talk to them, it's like they're protecting Taya Matoy or Mita Johnson. It's never us.
And that's the truth, you know, absolute truth. Taya Matoy made so many errors. I remember she was on the case for 157 days or whatever. And it wasn't until about 2 weeks before she filed her report, which she filed it on December 23rd. Go have at it, right before Christmas. That wasn't intentional, but she had called my collaterals 2 weeks before she wrote the report. Now, like, that doesn't even make sense. She's already talked to dads all the way through this whole process. But one of them, she calls up my brother and says, now my brother's not married, and says, yeah, hi. She leaves a voice message. Yeah, I'm calling to speak to you. I'm trying to get a hold of your wife, Flora. And now Flora is my mother. So I'm sorry, she's been on my case for how long? And she doesn't know that my brother's not married and my mom is Flora. Like, I mean, that just speaks volumes right there, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she did the same thing on my case too. My judge kind of ripped into her because he said, you said you could have this done in a timely manner, and here we are almost a year. Mine took forever. And Jamie's case was supposed to be hers is PRE, so it's a step above mine. And mine took even longer than Jamie's. And when my judge finally had enough, I was like, we need this report. Same thing like Jamie. She hadn't even called any of my collateral witnesses or anything. And all of a sudden, it was done like the next day.
Mm.
And I'm like, okay, so you haven't worked on it this entire time. And then you got reprimanded from the judge. And it was, I'm almost done. And then the next day it comes in. It's like she hurried through super fast.
Mm.
And just like Jamie's, mine had so many things that didn't even apply to my case where I was like, where did this come from?
Mhm.
This is ridiculous. I mean, you could nitpick it apart and pick out the individual pieces, but it was just shocking to read because you would read it and you'd be like, is this even my report? I remember flipping it upside down. Like, does this have the right name on it? Like, what is this stuff? And I was shocked. And I thought in that moment, honestly, I thought my ex-husband, I know he's not a good person, which is why I divorced him and all of that stuff. But I thought just for our children's sake, he would be like, get with his attorney and we would both come together cohesively and be like, this isn't right. I didn't say this. This didn't happen in our case. These aren't even the players in this case. But no, because it favored him, he just sat back and said nothing. And I know he knows the things in that report. So many of them don't even pertain to him or I, but he never said anything because the report came out. See, I was fighting for both my girls to stay with me where they had been for the first 16 to 14 years of their life. He was just fighting for the older one to stay with him because that's the one that wanted to stay with him. And so the report came out in his favor that she should stay. And then the younger one stayed with me. And so they split the kids up, which I never thought that they would ever do that. Especially because they had been together their entire lives. I was just shocked.
And they would miss each other.
Yep. And they haven't spoken to each other in 6 years. The siblings haven't spoken. I haven't spoken to my oldest child in 6 years. She hasn't spoken to her younger sister, who she was a baby when she left. She was 3 when she left, and she's 9.5 now. She hasn't spoken to her. Dad hasn't spoken to the daughter that stayed with me. So it's been a complete break. Nobody's ever spoken with the other parties again.
Oh.
And the thing is the first judge ordered the return of my oldest daughter to me immediately. Said that he didn't believe Dad's environment was safe and that he felt that she was in danger and that she needed to be returned immediately. Well, he didn't return her by the day she was ordered to be returned. So I took the police to assist me in going to her dad's house and picking her up. That was a mess. She refused to come. So we filed a motion stating that dad was withholding the child, even though he was ordered to return her. The judge agreed with me and said that in the state of Colorado, they can't physically remove a child, and that he believes that the safest environment for her was to be returned to the only home she had ever known her entire life, and to be with me. And he said because he couldn't physically remove her, he wanted to take away the court's liability, and that he would leave her with me on paper and order dad to pay child support, even though even though she was staying with him, to try and persuade him to do the right thing. And the court said that's the only way that they could resolve liability if something were to happen to her, because they believe it was a dangerous environment.
That I'm speechless.
And that's where I was shocked, because I'm like, the court saw in that forum and in that setting where it was all about truth and reactions, the judge saw how he reacted, how he blew up, how he was slamming his hands on the fist and yelling at the judge. And the judge threatened to have him removed and arrested. And he said that multiple times. He saw his demeanor. And when it came time to provide evidence, I had all of it. He had none of it. And so I really had hope in that moment. Like, okay, they're going to get this right. This is what court is supposed to be. I finally get my say where the truth matters. But when it was handed over to Taya, it was like all of that went out the window. He is such a manipulator. He got this whole new game plan, and it was baffling. I was like, how did the judge see it? Both judges, not just because we had a temporary orders judge. He saw the same thing. He also threatened to have him arrested. And then the actual judge on the case did the same thing. But yet Taya missed it so badly.
No. Well,
and it's because she wanted to. She had an end goal, and whether that was because the attorney and her worked together and are friends, and she felt like she owed him something because he hired her, and if she performs from him, again, this is my opinion, I believe that she feels if she performs for him, he's going to keep shoveling her the work. And so that's the only thing that I could come up with.
Well, I think it's also a crime of sexism. I think it's against women. And I think that's really what it comes down to. It's because we are women and we're discriminated against. That's my belief. I think, because I'm not sure, but that's, what I've experienced.
Right. And women are doing it to themselves, doing it to each other. Right. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. Currently, it's all women. It's all women doing this to other women. It's not even, because it's so weird to say it's sexism, right? It's a woman doing it to another woman, but it's true. It is. It's discrimination against moms and children. I do want to mention that, I went all out trying to, have some consequences done about Taya Matoy. And I did contact, her name is Karen McGovernor, and she was at the time, I think she's moved on to psychedelics or something, but she was the deputy director of legal affairs for the Colorado Department of Regulatory Agency, DORA, but she still works for DORA, just in a different department. But I had a conversation with her because this is a criminal act, which Taya Matoy did. And I wanted to make sure that it was recognized and she would be the next person to talk to. I did have a conversation with her. I recorded it as well. Throughout that conversation with her, she was more concerned of how I knew that her degree had someone else's name on it and that her credentials could not be verified. And she was shocked that I knew it because of the board meetings. And I believe under the description of this podcast, you'll be able to click on those board meetings to hear them, but you can clearly hear all the information. This Taya Matoy does not have the credentials to hold a license in marriage and family therapy. And so, what she had said, and I believe this was said during another, like a 7 News episode or something, but she said, so when we believe that a crime has been committed, we can refer the matter to local law enforcement, but that as far as our tools go. So they did not, right? They actually accepted the fact that her degree had someone else's name on it, and that her credentials weren't valid. You know, perjury, I'm just saying, because she committed perjury on my case, as well as, you know, not holding the credentials to make recommendations, and in itself is perjury, is Colorado revised statute is 18-A8-502 is perjury. And then the crime code for forgery is 18-5-102. If you look at those statutes, they're crimes. Those should have been gone to law enforcement. So why is she still practicing with you know, false credentials? I don't know. That does not make me feel comfortable that that they're allowing this to happen and they're not protecting the public.
Well, and tell her about that thing that you just forwarded me, where they're now making it easier for people with criminal backgrounds to.
So so they just passed a House bill. The House bill is 24-1004, and it says an applicant's conviction for a crime does not in and of itself disqualify the applicant from being issued a registration, certification, or license. And that was approved by the governor on June 4th, 2024. And so basically it's now accepting and allowing more people to have criminal backgrounds, as long as it doesn't affect their licensure. So basically, you know, in the case of Taya Matoy, it's okay that she's making that decision to get behind the wheel drunk. That as long as that doesn't affect the fact that she's sitting there as a marriage and family therapist and helping people and guide them through, you know, life. What I don't know. It's just, you know, to me, it just screams something's wrong. If you're accept. Now, don't get me wrong. Okay. We all make mistakes. Yes. One time or whatever, you know, and if it is, say, you know, you need a license for construction and you had a crime in burglary or whatever, you know, whatever, not a big deal, right? You know, it's not correlated. But when you're taking DUIs and you're a mental health professional, that's a bit concerning.
And then Jamie was able to get her responses for these DUIs when she tried to explain them to, Jamie would know this better than me, the board who made the decision whether she could stay on or not. Her responses were so unaccountable and ridiculous.
Yeah. And so I have so I got the dismissed letter on October 31st, 2022. And this is what DORA, Raina is the one who wrote this to me, says, your complaint regarding Taya Jean Matoy has been reviewed by our office. After due consideration, the facts presented do not amount to a violation of the Practice Act or rules that would warrant disciplinary action. Therefore, the complaint was dismissed.
I work in childcare, and if I was to tell these parents that I watch their children and care for every day that I've had 3 DUIs, I guarantee you every single one of them would say to me, we're not allowing you to watch our child. You clearly do not have the capability to make good decisions. In
Well,
every other profession, doctors, everything,
Mhm.
there's malpractice insurance for when they screw up. Where is the checks and balances for these people like Taya Matoy?
Mm.
She has no accountability. Nobody checks to make sure her work is accurate. When it is brought to the forefront that it is inaccurate, nobody does anything about it. And then we find out they're protected individuals and we have no legal repercussions, whether to sue them, file a complaint, because they're all protected. So where's the check and balances? We have it in every other profession, but not here. And somebody who cannot even drink and drive is
Mm.
going to tell me what's best for my kids.
Mhm.
That's
And,
ridiculous.
and that's true. So it's quasi immunity. So
Mhm.
these professionals have quasi immunity. So they have no repercussions for the wrong that they're doing. And you know, you got the boards, the judges, not even holding them to accountability either. So they can pretty much do whatever they want without any consequences. I mean, you got the recent case in Boulder County where 5 moms sued now I'm gonna forget his name. Is it Mark Kilmore, Val Kilmore's brother? He was a PRE, and you know, they tried
Mhm.
suing him, but it was dismissed because quasi immunity, even though, you know, there's issues, there's problems, you know. I mean, it's sad.
Mhm.
There has to be a checks and balances, because if these people know they can get away with everything, they're going to get away with everything. They're going to do it because there's I think there's a fine line between like a respectable level of fear, like I got to do this right because I'm going to get fired or I'm going to be held accountable. People
Mhm.
need that. People that are living in their RVs that are continuing to get DUIs,
Mhm.
that every time you bring it up to the judge, it's, well, they're professional. We're just going to go ahead and let them finish. They know that they're not going to be held accountable.
Mm-mm.
Exactly. And I want to say in the state of Massachusetts, where I reside now, is that you get one DUI, your professional license is done. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like it's held to a high standard. And that's because it's rightfully so, right?
Right.
You want to maintain the status quo of professionalism,
Mhm.
you
Right.
know?
I mean, even if that was a doctor or a nurse, you
Exactly.
would be in real big trouble.
Yeah,
Right.
and a doctor and a nurse, if they mess up, you have surgery and they mess up, you can file a claim under their malpractice and get a settlement. But
Mhm.
here, they can completely destroy a relationship between a parent and a child, and
Mhm.
nothing happens. There's no way for us to hold her accountable. And honestly, when Jamie found all of this stuff out about her education or her lack of education, I thought, oh my God, we did it.
Mm.
Something's going to come of this. There's going to
Mm.
be some sort of a lawsuit. They'll dive back into all of her old cases and reappoint somebody and get this fixed. I could not have been more wrong. Nobody cares.
No, it's strange. I understand what you're saying because I filed things too. It's like nobody cares. And
No, you don't.
um what we were talking about, Chris Osher of thegazette.com, class action suit filed against parental evaluator who said he believes 90% of domestic violence allegations he hears in custody cases now faces new legal woes with the filing of lawsuit that alleges his evaluators are extremely biased and favor abusive parents. And
Yeah.
that was the Gazette.
Yeah.
Um, and here it is right there.
Yeah. So that just recently came out, and in that, because I already read it,
Yeah.
I mean, a mom was thrown into jail because she wrote a text disbarring, I think it was her ex-husband's girlfriend or something, thrown into jail.
Mhm.
Like, can we take other measures, please? Like, how about she's probably dealing with some sort of trauma? Let's get her help on how to deal with the triggers. You know what I
Right,
mean?
right,
Like,
right.
instead of making her the trauma more, you know. And then you had Rachel Hawkins, I forget her last name, Pickett, you know, thrown into jail. I mean, because she's protecting our children. What is going on? Let's look at the big picture. Let's,
Mhm.
let's do something different, because what they're doing right now is devastating. It's discriminating against moms and children, and it's harming them. It's
Mhm.
harming them, the nurturers, the children. It's just awful.
Did you know in this article, it says Kilmer himself pleaded guilty of misdemeanor assault charge and a misdemeanor harassment charge in 2007 after his then wife said he pushed her to the bathroom floor, according to police reports. The charges were dismissed after Kilmer successfully completed a domestic violence training and 24 months of probation.
Wow. Wow.
The lawsuit filed against him on Thursday. This was we're in March of 2023. This lawsuit filed against him on Thursday states that he has exhibited systematic bias in his court-appointed parental evaluation work. So everyone's doing this bias thing, and it's whether they like you or not, or they don't
Yeah.
like something about you. And I'm sure there are some good dads out there that have gotten screwed over that
Yeah.
that you don't know about. I see, like up in New York, they're doing protests in front of the courthouses, and a lot of moms and dads have connected and have helped each other. And I don't know if that is going on in Colorado, if there are courthouse, protests in front of the courthouse or across from the courthouse.
There has been a few, and like you said, it's not always the mom, but there is the rare cases that the dad is being the victim.
Mhm.
But majority of it is women,
Mhm.
and I just want to say, the minute you say abuse, they want to give it to the abuser. And
Mhm.
my attorney actually said to me, this is when I was going through the original divorce. He said to me, we're not going to speak of that. And now I know why. He
Mhm.
saved me. He saved me from having years with my children, because I didn't speak of the abuse. I didn't know. I did
Right.
not know, but I took his word for it.
I think my lawyer said the same thing to me, and I said back, because I'm so, like, I was naive. I said, "Well, there hasn't been abuse, but really there had been, because verbal abuse and
Mm-hmm.
emotional abuse is the same thing as being hit." And actually,
Yeah.
a
Oh,
doctor
yeah.
told me that. I didn't know that. I'm like,
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't know. A lot of people don't know these things. It's coercive control.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. No, it is. And that was for me. So he never physically hurt me, but he psychologically and emotionally and coercively controlled me. He
Yes.
has physically harmed my children. And it's actually sickening. And I'll tell you this story where, like, my son waited to the last minute to do his math project. My ex-husband was so angry at him that he punched holes in his walls, threw a chair across the room in his bedroom. And his girlfriend testified about the situation and said, "Oh, well, he called me crying and he was so upset." And I was just like, who is there for my son? I didn't know about this until 2 years later.
Oh,
2 years later, that my son's been waking up in his bedroom with holes in the wall, reminding him of that instance every single day. And no one was there for my child. And I want to say, I'm not 100% sure, but I believe his girlfriend is a mandated reporter,
oh.
and no report was ever called in.
And
It's
in my
sad.
case, my husband was actually arrested and charged multiple times with domestic violence on not just me, but my children. And that was all reported to Taya. The police reports were given to her, everything. Not a word of that made it into the report, but she did tell me, not in the report, but she told me when I was telling her about it, none of that matters because it was so long ago. And I was like, well, that's why we're not together, is because he pushed me down the stairs when I was 8.5 months pregnant and caused me to go into preterm labor. My daughter told you that he did this. They would throw themselves on top of me to protect me
Mm.
from him. And although it's not currently happening, which I agree, it wasn't currently happening because we had been separated for 10 years. You don't think that that has shaped them and that does certain things to victims of abuse?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And she said, nope, it doesn't. It's been so long.
Yeah.
Oh, I just hate when they say stuff like that. Ugh.
And I'm not one to sit here and whine and cry about things. Like, yes, it happened. It made me a better person and I've moved on from it. And I don't sit here and tell that story to people because I don't want sympathy or people to look at me different. So I don't even bring that up most of the time. But it was relevant in this case as to where we were and how we got there. And she just dismissed it like it was nothing.
And she didn't tell the judge that either.
No. Nope.
That's something the judge needed to know. In fact, even in my case, my attorney said, hey, the co-parent counselor said he's volatile. And I thought, great, tell the judge. I know it's going to come out today. And there's like, you're waiting. And it never came out.
Yeah. And that's why when he was, banging on the table in the courtroom and they were threatening to have him removed. And it's like the judges are seeing it. If Taya would have come out and put that or said that, they would have been like, yeah, we've seen it firsthand. He cannot control himself. But not a word. Nothing.
That's sick.
Yeah.
See, I mean, this is why I think family court should just be abolished because I hear these things and it's a big money maker. It generates billions of dollars a year for these people and the kids are suffering. It causes the kids to have personality disorders when they stay with an abuser. They themselves, of course, become, personality disorders, and they'll go on and meet someone who maybe isn't a personality disorder, then put them through hell, and then everyone will go back into family court so they can all spend some more money in a matter of 10 years. It'll just perpetuate itself.
Exactly. That's the truth.
Yeah. I was going to say, I think they put them with not in every case, but there's a lot of cases where they end up with a certain parent. And I think they do use it as a money maker because they're like, we know mom's not going to quit. She's going to come back. And that's just going to feed more money into the system.
Right.
Right. I mean, I know of a gentleman I interviewed, and this judge of his was allowing his 3-year-old, 4-year-old son to live with a 4-count felon with his ex. His ex was living with a 4-count felon with his child.
Wow.
It's like, okay, so obviously, I don't understand why they wouldn't give him custody if this stuff is going on. They're giving custody to all these abusers that don't deserve it.
Right.
That should just abolish the thing.
They should either abolish it or they should have trials where there's a jury. Because I guarantee you, if we had a jury, things would have been totally different.
I agree.
Absolutely.
I've always said take it down to civil court where a parent has the option of having a jury.
Yeah. Well, apparently civil court is now criminal court too. And I don't want to dive into that, but
that's another podcast, man. Oh my goodness.
Wow.
Yeah. I'm so glad you guys came on. How do you want to be reached? Do you want people to come through me? Then I can reach you? Or do you want to give your emails?
They can reach out to the YouTube channel and just message me through that, which will be under the description.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'll put that in podcast notes.
And then I just want to say thank you, Maryann, for having us and letting us speak our truth. So thank you so much.
Well, it has to be spoken because they're not listening either.
Yeah. And then I want to do a shout out to my friends that have been helping me throughout this. Like I wouldn't have been able to do this without them. And it is Nate Monroe, who was on your podcast a couple of weeks ago and will soon be on it again. And And then also Debbie Carroll, who was on your podcast a couple weeks ago and soon to be on it too. Her organization is Consideration. And if you want to reach her, it's considerationnonprofit.org. And then Nate Moreau's is givesungo.com -paladine, and it's PALADN media. And without their support, like I said, I wouldn't be here today. They have kept me strong throughout this whole adventure.
Yeah, they're amazing. They're amazing people. You know, and thank God for people like that to help you.
Yes, yes. And to speak to other moms like Jamie, you know, and other moms who have experienced the same thing, you know.
Right, because I mean, Nate went through some horrible things himself.
Me too, yeah.
You know, and this is just a very sick system. It's not broken. They want it to work this way to generate more money, and people need to wake up and know this.
Yeah. Yeah. So I want to say that I now get it why people don't leave. You know what I mean? Like, had I known,
Yeah.
I was being abused by the abuser, but now I'm being abused by the abuser, the judicial system. It's awful. How do you stay sane when you're being attacked by everyone? It's awful, you know. So I do understand why people stay in an abusive relationship.
Until they find the strength to leave, or they think this can't happen to me.
Right.
Yeah. I was like, I just like snapped out of it. It's like, okay, I know I have to get a divorce. I had to, or,
Yeah.
Something was going to happen. I didn't know what, I kind of knew what, but I just, it's another podcast, but,
But
I
hear
think and Jamie, Cunningham, how do you want to be reached? Or,
They could just go through you.
okay, that's fine.
That would work for me.
I'm so glad you both came out and shared all of this because it needs to be told, and your children are suffering.
Yes.
Well, don't jump off, okay? Slam the Gavel is a podcast to help the public understand what really goes on in these courtrooms. I'm your host, Maryann Petri, and you can find me on Spotify, YouTube. Please like and subscribe, Apple iTunes, iHeartRadio, Google, and other platforms I don't even know about. Again, feel free to buy me a coffee to help keep this podcast going. And I totally thank you, Jamie Cunningham and Jamie Logan, for coming on and speaking your truth and just continue to speak out. I appreciate you both.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.